Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Beth, Mary has Scott.
Hello.
How's everybody?
Good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Feels like we haven't had a meeting in a while.
Yeah. It's true. Winter is nice. It's nice to have things quiet. I mean, tonight will be, hopefully, it should be reading.
That's nice.
So I can't remember if I think Robin's coming tonight. Actually, I'm not sure if Robin's coming tonight.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember her saying she was going anywhere.
I don't remember her saying anything yesterday about not being here.
All right. Should have my phone here for when my laptop crashes on me. Maybe I'll just log in for grins and giggles. Oh, yeah.
You are muted.
Advanced gig speed Wi-Fi and cyber threat protection. Get started for just $49. At Comcast Visit Phone. For apps, how to get up to $1,000 in prepaid phone.
Press Alt+8 to unmute your recording. Alt+8, what's that?
Comcast Visits.
Okay, could you please
Alt+8,
mute
what it
yourself?
is?
Thanks. All right, 7:00 and we are all here. Hi, Robin.
Hello.
So I'm going to call to order the Shutesbury Conservation Commission. Please mute yourself.
Right there.
Carrie, can you mute whoever's making the noise? Thanks. Okay, I'm going to call to order the Shutesbury Conservation Commission for this January 12th. For the record, present are Miriam DeFont, Mary David, Robin Harrington, and Beth Wilson. All right. On our agenda for tonight, I'm just going to briefly update everybody. 7:00, we have a continued public meeting for 375 Locks Pond Road with the Bernard family. At 7:15, we are going to have the continued public hearing for the Lot 032 ANRAD. That is going to be continued. So there won't be any discussion tonight. We'll just briefly open that hearing and then vote to continue it and move on. And that hearing will resume on February 9th. And then we have just some other topics to review that have come up in the last couple weeks, but we don't have any other permits that we have to review. Oh, we have 86 Sand Hill Roads order of conditions. They have some questions about the erosion controls and the phasing for their projects. So Dandelion Energy and Tom Coulter are going to be coming tonight to talk about that. All right, so let's start with the RDA, and are the applicants here? I'm trying to.
Yes.
see Here.
Yes, we're here. Yep.
Terry, hi Terry,
Hi,
welcome.
Dave's here too. Yep.
Okay, so you've given us an updated site plan. And maybe we can put it up on the screen. Carrie, can you pull it up, the most recent one?
I didn't receive one. And
It would be an addendum. It was the
Oh,
addendum.
the addendum? Okay, I thought you meant like a site plan.
It's in that document, if you can open it up. I can open it up, mine up, if you can't find it.
No, I can open it.
Here, you know what? I've got it. I've got it open. Let me pull it up. Okay, can people see it?
Yep.
Please, if you are not being recognized, please mute yourself. Thank you.
Miriam, that's actually the old one. I think we sent you an updated one last night.
Oh, last night.
Yes,
All right, let me,
or yesterday afternoon.
I don't know if I received it. Let me. Carrie, do you know if you could, I'm not in my email. Let me see if I can,
Let me just check and see what time.
maybe I missed it. Sorry if I
That's
have.
okay. I'm just looking at it, realizing that the site is different.
Okay, well, that's important. Let me see if I can log into my email. Sorry for,
I don't have anything besides that last
Okay.
document.
this is just gonna take me a minute, guys, for me to log into Gmail and see if I can pull it out. Unless, do you have it handy? Can we, do you want to screen share? Terry and David? Is that what you do, or do you want us to try to pull it up? I'm logging into my email, see if I can find it. Was it from you or was it from David?
No, it was from me, and let me just see. It was sent yesterday at 4:19, and it was sent to the Concom email address.
And which email did you use? Your UMass one or your regular one?
No, my regular,
Okay, Terry Bernard.
my Yahoo. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you want me to forward
No,
this on?
I just found it.
Okay, great.
So, if this is different, let me look. And, okay. And this is dated, there's no date on this. So this was sent yesterday?
Yep.
Okay, let me,
There should be a date on the addendum,
okay,
because it's,
all right.
yeah,
can-
that's
this?
actually the site. Yep, that's the correct
But the
one.
first page, yes, well, this
Yep.
says 11, yes, 111. Okay, so we had a bunch of questions for you and you were gonna come back to us with more information. So why don't you take a few minutes and kind of walk us through kind of what you're planning at this stage?
Right,
and-
so the last meeting, we discussed the 28 by 32 garage that we want to build. But there was concerned about the asphalt driveway and the retaining wall that we want to build. So that was actually included in the addendum. So we're doing a 30 by 38 asphalt driveway, but the driveway is coming off of Locks Pond Road. And it's actually abutting the circular driveway that's existing there now. The
Did the screen
asphalt
just,
driveway.
did that just blitz on everybody? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's an existing asphalt circular driveway there now.
Right
And
here.
we're actually just putting our driveway for the new garage abutting that. Connecting that, basically.
Okay, so even though it's looks separate here, it's gonna be all connected.
Right, right. Or very close, yes.
Okay. And then you are putting in a retaining wall, which is a little hard to see here, but it's
Yeah, it's actually in blue.
Yeah.
So the retaining wall will be, it's 16. Oh, that's actually by where the grass is.
The plan originally said 30 to 40 feet.
Right, exactly, 30 to 40 feet, and it'll be 2 to 4 feet height. But what we plan on doing is, because there is a slope there, and I think some of you saw it yesterday, we plan on bringing in sand and topsoil where the green is,
Upper and lower.
upper and below the retaining wall. And then once the site is completed, we're gonna do the conservation grass seed.
And you mentioned maybe some sort of pavers on the
And we're
down.
not gonna, yeah, we discussed that. We're not gonna do the pavers. We're just gonna do the retaining wall with the steps in the center of the retaining wall going down to the house.
Okay.
And we're just gonna do grass in between.
All right. So what kind of question, do commissioners have some more questions?
Oh, boy.
Oh,
No?
No, I don't have any more.
No, I was at the site visit yesterday, so that was good.
So one of my questions is that, you're adding some impervious surfaces and you're changing the grade because you're bringing in fill and bringing up a sloping area up to, raising it 2 to 4 feet. And so, I am a little concerned about the impact on the resource area, which is downhill from the garage area, because there's the potential for increased stormwater from the road and now from this impervious surface to make its way into the resource area. And I just am a little concerned in other projects similar where, and this is also just so people understand, the limit of work is about 30 feet from the resource area. So this is not a minor exempt activity under the Wetland Protection Act. If it's within 50 feet, even it's an exception. So I am wondering about whether we have enough information to be able to say that there's not going to be any impact on the resource area. Particularly because there's no kind of stormwater conveyance or management between the driveway and the resource area. I understand you're putting in the retaining wall to try to catch some stormwater. But should I put up the map again, just so I can maybe if I point, it'll be a little clear where my area of concern is. But because, this is something we've looked at with other projects where there's slopes, and this is a very sloping project. We had asked for contours, a map with contours, and we don't have that here. So it's a little hard if you haven't been out to the site. Can you see my cursor, everybody?
mhm.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a slope this way from where this pavement is going to be down to the intermittent stream, which is just going to be outside of this red line. It kind of snakes down, I think, here, and it kind of wraps around this building, which is weird. It's a very modified and disturbed area. This wetland has been altered and continues to be altered. It's grassy up to the edges of the intermittent stream. So it's not a naturally vegetated site. And then for everybody's information, it goes downhill, goes to a culvert about right here, and then goes under Lake Drive, and then it's underground through a conduit pipe all the way into the lake. So my concern is about stormwater going this way I'm also wondering about water coming off the road onto this area, and, you know, if this is all flat, kind of where is it gonna go? Is it gonna go again into the wetland? So I wonder if you wanna maybe talk about that, or if other commissioners have some thoughts about it. With
Well,
similar
what-
projects, there have been similar projects where we've required notices of intent.
Yeah, well, and one comes to mind, but the one that I'm thinking of was they were actually, you know, building a new house, so the whole yard was gonna be dug up, and we didn't, you know, so we asked for planting plans and that kind of thing to try to figure out stormwater on that other yard. But this one, everything to the right of that new paved area is lawn currently. You know, the volume of water on that 30 by 30-foot paved area, most likely it's going to sheet flow either to the right or to the left. You know, we could ask maybe that the driveway be you know, slanted so it does sheet flow to the left, and that way it would go into the areas that they're going to grass right now that are above the retaining wall. To me, it just seems like there's quite a bit of existing grass area, and there's going to be more that will catch the sheet flow from the driveway.
I think looking at it on the site, I'm not quite as worried. There is a lot of grass for there. That there's going to be a lot of water flow off that way to the side.
It's about 30 feet of grass, roughly.
Yeah.
Well, it's grass here, but it's grass all the way down from there. So even to the side of the garage, it's all grass, but everything down below that is all grass too.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the water from the road goes under that, into that culvert, into the stream there too.
Mhm.
You know, that it drains out already from what's there.
Mhm. I guess I was thinking about other projects where there were changes in grade and changes to stormwater flow, and we required some mitigation, stormwater mitigation. And you know, we don't really have the tools for doing that through an RDA that we have through an NOI.
Yeah, I think those other projects had all sorts of other factors involved in them.
Closer to the lake. You know, I'm just thinking of one that was very nearby there where it wasn't a whole house reconstruction, but it was you know, an addition, and but they were changing grade and they were putting in a retaining wall, and we required an NOI.
But that was right on the lake, right? The one you're
Right,
talking about, yeah, this is, I mean, this has the whole Lake Drive up in between there and the lake.
Yeah,
know,
when
and I
those other projects, I feel like you really kind of looked at them and you didn't really understand where the water was going to go. For me, at least, when I look at this plan, I can see that the sheet flow is just going to go into those grassed areas. And I actually don't think it'll probably reach the stream. You know, there's 30 feet of grass to the right, and there'll be grass to the left once their project's done. So I think it'll infiltrate.
okay. All right, so I want to pause for a second because it's 7:15 and we have the other ANRAD public hearing. So if the Bernards wouldn't mind, I'd like to just put you on hold for 5 minutes so we can take care of this other matter, and then we'll come back and address
Okay.
your permit. Can we do that?
Okay, great.
Thanks. So
Thank
don't go
you.
away. We're coming
Okay,
back. We're coming back. Okay, so I would like to open the public hearing for the ANRAD for Lot 032, 66 Lake Drive. I'm Mary Ann.
Hi. 66 Leverett Road.
Is that what I said?
You said Lake Drive, and on the,
It's
it's on
there.
your
Those two things-
document.
Those two things are just, My wiring is crossed. 'cause
Oh,
there
it's
is a
right. It's because you're
66
talking
Lake
about
Drive.
Lake Drive. Okay.
There is a 66 Lake Drive that we've
Yeah.
talked about a lot. That's why.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So hi, everyone. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the survey completed in time for Fuss and O'Neill to do their paperwork so that we could get it to Emily. So we are asking for the hearing to be continued to the next meeting.
Great. I checked with Beth Goodman and she is not available at 7 o'clock. She's available at 8 o'clock. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we will entertain a motion to continue. We're not taking any public comment or discussion tonight. So we're going to continue to February 9th at 8 PM. Somebody want to make a motion?
So I'll make a motion that we continue the hearing to February 9th at 8 PM.
Yeah,
The public
second.
hearing for Lever.
Second,
Okay, David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington,
I,
on Scott, you're muted. I don't know. No, you're not. I can't hear you though. Okay, do you want to just nod? Okay, I hear nod. Scott has his thumbs raised in as an I, and Wilson.
aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so back to 375 Montague, up 375 Lox Pond Road. Okay, so I think it sounds like we have enough information to reach a determination. Does everybody feel like we have enough?
Yeah.
Okay. And does somebody want to make a motion to close the public meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the public meeting for 375 Lox Pond Road.
Okay, second,
Second,
David,
Aye.
Stefan, I, Harrington,
I,
Khan.
Aye.
Oh, you're here. Thank you.
hear you.
Wilson, you came back.
Aye.
Okay. So now, Terry and David, we will iron out the permit. And so at this point, we've kind of closed the meeting. So we're really not accepting any more comments, but we will, if we have some detail, we may ask you to clarify it. So in anticipation that we might approve it tonight, I've got a draft. Well, let me cue it up and we can take a look at the language. I wasn't sure whether we were going to come up with a positive or a negative determination, so I want to make sure we get the wording correct. Let me first go to the Form 2. I'm going to share it so we can review this. Form 2 is where? Okay. All right, can everybody see the form?
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
I cannot
At least
see.
the top part. There we go.
Okay, so I've got the applicant. The addendum date has changed to today's the 11th. So here applicant proposes to build a 28 by 32 foot garage with 4 by 6 foundation walls. A 12-foot by 16-foot shed will be removed. Additional asphalt driveway service will be added in front of the garage. And then a retaining wall. Grade above the retaining wall will to be raised approximately 3 to 4 feet. Maybe it was more to like 2 to 4 feet. Project area is within the 100-foot buffer of BVW. Limit of work is approximately 30 feet. From the resource area, proposed work is within protected resource area. And I just put in that it's not a minor exempt activity because it's within 50 feet. So then for our determination, again, we're not going to do a positive determination, but it is a work that's subject to the bylaw. So it's 5 is checked off. And then scrolling down to negative determinations, negative determination number 3. See attached special conditions. Okay. And then scrolling down, the date is for tomorrow. And then we've got everybody's digital signature. Does that look good?
Looks good.
Okay, let me pull up the special conditions. Okay. Again, I gotta change the font. This is just more of the same, describing the project. Mentioning here that the buffer zone consists of maintained grassy lawn. And then discussion about the environmental benefits of buffer zone, which was language that was recommended at a training I'd gone to. And then change this date. Does that look good?
Yep.
Yeah,
And special conditions, this is all pretty much boilerplate. Applicant will provide copy to anyone who's a contractor. Anybody doing the work is subject to these conditions. Erosion controls should be installed. No hay may be used. Once erosion controls are in place, the applicant will submit photographs in lieu of a pre-construction site visit. And I would just say for the applicants, submit, what you should do is submit the photographs and then wait till you get a confirmation that the erosion controls are sufficient, and then go ahead with the work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. No major changes will be made. Well, they are making a major change, so I think that we should take that out. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Pre-existing vegetation preserved to the maximum amount possible. Erosion controls need to be maintained. Any changes to the plan, you need to come back to us to determine, if a new application is needed. So please don't add any more to the project without at least checking in with us to see whether we feel like it's covered by this permit or not. Any materials will be stockpiled as far away from the resource area as is possible. I think the plan they discussed was on their driveways where they were going to stockpile things. Any soil or gravel should be tarped. No material should be dispersed in any of the area under our jurisdiction. Grass reseeding. Well, it's not just the buffer zone, but let's say grass reseeding for this project. That makes sense.
Yes,
Is only permitted, with conservation grass seed mix. The applicant shall submit to the commission documentation of the type of seed mix to be used, like a photograph of the label or something, within 30 days of the issuance of this determination. This condition is required in order to enhance the wetland values of the buffer zone. And then the applicant shall submit to the commission photographic documentation of the site within 30 days of the completion of the project. The other thing I guess we don't have in here, just realizing, is maybe it does that. Okay, erosion controls will remain in place until the site is stabilized and revegetated. So I'd say if you're doing construction or beginning it this winter, until the grass is kind of taken hold, erosion controls should stay in place. Is there anything else you want to see in this?
No.
All right. Somebody want to make a motion to issue a negative determination number 3 with special conditions as amended?
So I'll make a motion to approve the -3 with special consideration as reviewed,
Special conditions.
with special conditions as reviewed, sorry,
Okay.
for the 375 Locks Pond Road.
Second,
I second.
okay, David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington,
I,
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
I,
Okay, so we're done with that. And I don't think that Tom Colt is here yet. I just saw that Hannah Kowalski is joining. So I think we'll postpone talking about Sand Hill. Hi, Hannah. Hannah Kowalski, are you there?
So
Maybe
we're all done with the Locks Pond Road project?
We're done with Locks Pond Road. So, Carrie, will you be able to mail out the permit tomorrow?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so Terry and David, we're all done. I will
Okay.
email you a copy, your own digital copy of the permit.
Okay.
Probably tomorrow morning, and then you'll get a copy by certified mail.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank
Free to
you.
go. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Hannah, are you there? Okay, she's not answering. So we'll come back to that later. Maybe I could give the commission an update on the West Quabbin Woodlands Conservation Area acquisition. I think that would be really good. It's been really complicated in the last month. So in mid-December, actually, I thought that, I'm not going to talk about that right now because I think that Bridget Lively from Kestrel is going to come at around 8. So I think I'm going to postpone that topic until she shows up. So let's go down. Let's consider the minutes. We're waiting. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes for November 10th?
yep,
All right. Somebody want to make any changes or edits?
just a couple I gave you yesterday.
Yeah, there's a little typos that she gave me that I added. Okay, somebody want to make a motion for 11:10?
Make a motion to approve the minutes for 11:10 with the couple of corrections submitted by Robin.
Okay, a second.
I second.
David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington,
I,
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
I,
Okay, then we have the minutes for November 17th. Any comments or edits?
look good.
no,
Make a
Carrie,
motion to accept.
I just
Sorry.
want to make a comment that Carrie's been working really assiduously to get all the draft minutes. We got some more to approve it in February, and these minutes were very thorough, and I really think it was a great job, and I just want to thank Carrie for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
No
thank
problem.
you.
Sorry you have to think about us so much. So somebody want to make a motion for the November 17th minutes?
A motion to approve the 11:17 minutes.
Okay, second,
Second,
David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington,
I,
Aye.
Wilson.
I,
Annual report. Should we just knock that one off? Has everybody had a chance to review it, the draft?
yes,
One of the questions that Janice Stone emailed me about was whether we really need to have the information about financials in the report. And I don't have a strong opinion about it, so I guess I'd like to hear what other people think. It might make the report a little shorter. I guess Janice's concern is that without going into a lot of explanation about what each count is and what it can be used for, it might not be that helpful. That information might not be so helpful to the public. I'm not really sure.
So we're not required to have it in the annual report?
I don't know. Janice didn't think so.
Yeah.
Anybody else here know any more about that? I see April Stein's here. Maybe April would know. Hi, April.
Hi, I do. Oh, there's a vacuum cleaner. I'm sorry. It's not required. It's really encouraged. You know, if there's any way you can put one together, it really would be helpful. But I know not all departments do, so there's not like a requirement, but if you can do it, that would be really helpful.
Do you think we need to, I guess my question was, for example, it's a little confusing maybe for the public to understand that we have these fee accounts. But there's limitations on what we can use them for. And we have two different accounts, one's for one under one piece of law and the other's on another piece of law.
You don't need to do that much. It would be more like an overall gestalt of what the Concom has been doing. I don't think you need to list every, because all of that is taken care of in your budget or in your minutes. It's sort of a narrative of, generally you looked at X number of properties or something more general.
So what we have in the draft, and I'm going to pull it up on screen share. So we're actually talking about, and it's helpful to have you here, April, because you were a select board member and you were on the FinCom for a long time. So your thoughts about it. So what I have in this report, and this is how this has been constructed in past years, is we have a table way up here with a tally of all the different projects that we reviewed. What we don't have is how much we pulled in fees. What I have is the balances at the end of the fiscal year for each of our accounts.
Well, that should be fine.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's really to give the public an idea of what you've been doing.
I think
for historical purposes.
I think we've been really busy. We did 84 site visits in fiscal year 2020, 84 site visits.
Wow.
Just take it in.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. But that wasn't necessarily more than other years, I think. It's just, it was surprising it was that much. It didn't feel like it was that much, but it adds up.
It's a lot.
Yeah, we're busy. We're busy. Okay.
But that looks fine. That generally, I think that would be fine.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So
welcome.
do you guys want to review it again? Should I put it back up on screen share or are we good?
Yeah, could you I just actually want to look at that last paragraph again with the money.
The money. Okay.
The money.
You guys see it?
Mhm.
Yes.
I'm not really sure if it's Conservation Expendable Trust Fund or it's just Conservation Trust Fund. But anyway. If you felt like,
That's fine.
oh, where'd it go?
That's good.
I can't see it. I lost it. Okay, here it is. Is that good? We don't need to get into more.
No.
I think it's good. It's a good
All right.
summary.
Okay, and the other thing I added a little bit more up here. This was just, I think you guys all saw this. I added some more details about what's been going on with the different conservation areas, the work in that fiscal
Right.
year. And I added a sentence I thought maybe it would be a good thing. We conduct regular site visits, typically with 2 or more commissioners present, and educate residents about conservation and wetlands regulations. Then this piece about our hiring consultants, but then I also just added a sentence. We have a homepage with homeowner resources because I felt like, town meeting, people read things. They might not go to our website if they didn't know we had some resources on it.
Mhm.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right. All right.
That's
So
good.
that is done. Do we want to have a motion?
Motion to approve the amended FY22 annual report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, David,
Aye.
Defont, aye, Harrington,
aye.
on,
Aye.
Wilson.
I,
Okay. I'm going to table the Old Peach Orchard CR monitoring report because I just have not finished looking it over. So sorry about that. We will get that in. We talked about, just going through updates. How much time do we have? So let me give a couple of updates. I put on the agenda beaver management at Lake Wyola, just to give you an update that, just to remind you that during December, the highway department had considered asking for an emergency cert, but they changed their mind and are not going to do any work this winter on that beaver dam material that's in the culvert on Lakeview Road and Fisk Pond. And the last I heard is that the Board of Health is looking to maybe get some consultation from an expert about what might be able to be done at that culvert to prevent beaver dam material clogging it up.
Okay.
Imagine nothing's going to happen till the spring.
Okay.
And then other topics that I have on the agenda for discussion, I wanted to give the commission an update that I was invited to go to a Leverett Conservation Commission meeting that occurred this last Monday, because they were talking about their efforts to hire a conservation agent. And I just forwarded to everybody today, I think, the documents that just got released from FERCog. So FERCog's planning division did a comprehensive feasibility study looking at several Franklin County towns that might be interested in having a shared conservation agent position, which is just for members of the public to understand, a conservation agent is different from a land use clerk. Conservation agents are professional level staff that have more regulatory roles, not just administrative. They might do site visits, they might do wetland delineations, they would draft permits, they do enforcement investigations, things of that ilk. And there's been talk about trying to perhaps pool resources at the county level, because it is difficult for small towns with part-time positions to find qualified staff, because people often professionals are looking for more hours than individual small hill towns can afford. So with that in mind, Leverett and Wendell have a part-time conservation agent. They have the same one. They've had a shared one. So they each hired that person individually. So he works for both towns, but he's resigning in March. And so now they are going to be beginning the process of trying to fill that position. And if you may remember, they approached, not Wendell, but Leverett and Pelham had approached us last winter, asking if we would be interested in joining forces for a shared position. I think Leverett and Wendell are interested in exploring this with us. We will be in a position sometime in the spring, I don't know when, where we'll probably need to do another hiring search, because sadly, we're going to lose Carrie at some point. Time to be determined, because she is moving on to bigger and better things. But we don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but sometime probably in the spring. Is that what your thought is, Carrie?
Yeah, I'm pretty open. Like, I'm willing to stay as long as I can help as much as possible, train the next person. So that way it's smoother transition.
So I'd really encourage everybody to take a look at the feasibility study. And a few months ago, FERCog gave me the draft of the job description that they were developing, and I ran it by a few people, including Janice, and revised it with some feedback. And so there's a draft that I shared with everybody.
Yep, I saw that.
And, you know, it's just a job description. There's no position being created by FERCog at this point. It's all theoretical. Nothing is in place. No decisions have been made. So when I was talking with Leverett, you know, there were a few things that popped up as options for us to consider. One would be that we not join forces really with those other two towns, but perhaps consider some sort of shared recruitment, like maybe perhaps some joint review so that we're not competing and we're possibly maybe finding somebody who might want to be potentially hired by all three towns separately. So each town would have its own position. The other possibility would be to try to create some sort of shared position, and the financial mechanisms would have to be ironed out with an intermunicipal agreement. FERCog gave us a draft of a perhaps model intermunicipal agreement if individual towns want to contract with one another. To do that, we would have to go through the personnel board as well as the select board, and then get a budget approved by the finance committee, and I believe incorporated into the annual town budget. One way to do this would be to think about taking the budget allocation for the land use clerk and bifurcate it. So keep a land use clerk, but shave off some of the hours and allocate that for a conservation agent. So that, you know, the land use clerk would have a more streamlined, more limited number of responsibilities. One of the issues for the land use clerk, and Carrie can probably speak to this, is that the other two boards don't meet every week and they don't have as much weekly flow of projects. And so if you want to have regular hours for an employee, an hourly employee, you kind of need to have some consistency. And that's kind of what the Concom has sort of done for the land use clerk, is that, you know, Carrie has her regular office hours and does the administrative stuff for us. And then she does these additional things when they pop up for the planning board and the ZBA. Another way to think about doing this would be not to hire an agent, but to per se as a regular salaried employee, but perhaps contract for professional services, like to hire a consultant, either through, you know, a private consulting firm. So, you know, we could contract with Emily Stockman or Patrick Garner or somebody else who's does consulting for conservation commissions, and then basically purchase a certain number of hours, you know, a month or a year for consultation. So that would be another way to do it. The other thought I had about this was that if we were going to look at having an agent, we might want to be looking at how could our regulatory activities support the salary or the wages. So I wanted to look at kind of what our budget is. No, I'm sorry, not our budget. What our fees look like. What are we pulling in for fees? And, you know, do we need to re-examine our fee structure through our regulations for our bylaw? We do a lot of permitting work where we don't get any fees at all. And a lot of towns have a much heftier fee structure, which would then give us some resources. If you want, I can pull up a table. I think I have it open. Let me see if I have it open.
I do think our fees are a little on the low side. We've talked about that before.
We sure have. Let me, Carrie helped me today. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay. So, these are what we pulled in. This is year to date for fiscal year 23. And these numbers are a little wonky. So these are noted, the fees we've received under the Wetland Protection Act, NOI fees. This is what we received under ANRADs, and then bylaw fees. And I just want to say that in looking it over, I see that we have been before Carrie came on, And before I became chair, particularly during the year when Tessa was the land use clerk, there were some inconsistencies in collecting the fees for the bylaws. So we didn't quite collect quite as much as we probably should have. So we had 14 RDAs, and that doesn't quite line up with 250. Does it? Maybe it does. What is, okay, so anyway, there'd be 8, 1, 2, 3. Well, wait, 4, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there's $100 that was missing that we never collected, it looks like. But anyway, the ANRADs are not that common. We get a lot of money for ANRADs, but we're not likely to get a lot of ANRADs in the future, unless there's something going on in the world that we don't know about. But so if we just take, so these are our total amounts, and as you can see, this is where we are year to date. This is the total amount if you took out the ANRADs, to give you a kind of a better idea of how much we're pulling in for the other permits. And so, you know, maybe around $1,000. Again, I think the collections under the bylaw were inconsistent going back a couple years. So I think it's probably more likely that it's going to be around $1,200 a year, which isn't a lot of money and doesn't really give us a lot of, we have kind of a little war chest accumulated. We have about $6,000 in the Wetland Protection Act fund, but that's mostly coming from those ANRADs. You know, more than half of it came from the ANRADs that we had. So what do you think? What should we do?
I do think we need to revisit our fee structure at some point.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, so Shutesbury's never had an agent position. It's always just been land clerk. And has this been approached with the select board at all, or anybody that it's sort of a needed position, even if it's just, you know, 5 hours, 6 hours, but it's just specifically a Concom person?
It's only in a very, very hypothetical way. Last year, I raised it, and I know Penny Jakes raised it with Becky. And because we were in that recruitment process, and Leverett and Pelham wanted to know if we wanted to create a agent position with them, a shared agent position. And at the time, it just felt like it wasn't the right time to really pursue this. But it's been hinted about, but I believe that, we would have to develop a proposal and go to the personnel board. That would be the first step. Is that April? You're on the personnel board. You're here. It's very handy you're here, April. If you're still there, can you clarify?
Yes, I'm still here. Yes.
Clarify this for us?
You would have to, because you'd have to start with a job description, which would be approved by the select board. Has to ultimately approve it, but it's really developed with the personnel board.
Okay.
So, what kind of position you're looking for, qualifications, the duties, and that all has to be, created in a job description. And I'm not sure which wage you're talking about. And again, that would have to be approved ultimately by the select board.
Okay. Yeah, that was my understanding. So and then it has to be, if it's a net increase, it has to be addressed with finance committee, right? And then it has to
be part of your budget.
Yeah. And if it was a new position, that might be something that would get discussed at.
I'm not sure if I know what the strategy, how you would go about changing your fees, if that's a process that has to also include the select board. That I'm not sure of.
It is a regulatory process, April. The fees are outlined in our regulations. The Conservation Commission can
Mhm.
develop new regulations, and then we just post them and hold a public hearing, and then we promulgate them. So no, we don't need a bylaw or change, or it's all done through regulations, and the
Okay.
regulations don't require a bylaw change.
So
I-
starting, no, just so get it, so that sounds like that's clear. So if you're looking for a new position, then that does start with the personnel board.
Right. And if we wanted to bypass all of that and just try to hire consultants, we can do that on our own with the funds we have available. And if we need to raise more funds because we feel like the fees are outdated, we can do that. No, so I see that Carrie's got her hand raised and Scott does. So why don't Scott, you go first and then Carrie.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. I do think it's worth looking at the fees, and I think the other piece of this too, you mentioned the number of site visits, and I think we were gonna circle back to looking at our site visits for the year and the minor exempt activities and how things kind of sorted themselves out that way. And so maybe as we're thinking about where we need more capacity and where we're spending our time, and just thinking it through all those different lenses, I think that would be a good discussion to have.
Yes, and now that the annual report is done, I plan was, and I can maybe do this for the next meeting, is to present some data. Scott, as I'd mentioned, we were gonna look at how many, how many, looking at all of that. Though I would say, and I wouldn't think that a conservation agent would be a substitute for our doing what we are continuing to do, including site visits. I don't think that it is feasible. I think we have to rely on volunteers for a lot of this. And so I think if we were going to be kind of penny wise, we would need to really think shrewdly about how can we best use a conservation agent in the areas that are the most problematic, where we need professional consultation or professional support. And it may even be that we would decide that we don't need an agent. What we need is a consultant. And that's a question in my mind, is do we need an agent, or do we need, somebody like an Emily Stockman, or even a Janice Stone, or a Patrick Garner? We have Beth, and we have all of you wonderful commissioners and all of your various pots of expertise, which is wonderful. And
So if the other towns have agents, could we use them as consultants?
well, that's another possibility, is that you maybe have an agreement with a town where you purchase time. So somebody else hires an agent, perhaps with additional hours, because they have an agreement with us as a town. That would require the select board, of course, because intermunicipal agreements have to be made with the select board. Might be complicated to do that. And so, that might be an option, or another option would be to find a private consultant that we felt would add expertise that we don't have, or,
Well, to me,
not even expertise that we don't have. I mean, who could review things for us and provide recommendations, I guess is more. Go ahead, Beth.
yeah, well, I'm just thinking of what sort of, I guess, traditionally a wetlands agent or a wetlands administrator does. That I'm assuming these ones that work in Pelham and Leverett, because they certainly know what they do in Amherst. So they do a lot of just the paperwork too, in which I think Carrie was involved in, with, agendas and minutes and things like that. But on top of that, to take some of your responsibility away, Miriam, would be, and I'm not sure what Carrie's been doing, but, dealing with applicants in terms of, and this is maybe where the expertise comes in, an application comes in and you need to, or a question comes in from somebody about whether or not they need to apply. And that's where somebody who really understands the regulations can sort of respond to people's questions, or could look at an application that comes in and say, oh, it's missing this, this, and this. Like, those are all things that agents in other towns do, but I think you're doing at this point. So I think we kind of need to spell out what we want this position to be doing that would be the most helpful.
Right.
Um,
And that's exactly what I'm thinking, is that I think we need to think it through a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think you're raising some really good points, Beth, and you know, what is even doable if you purchase or you hire somebody and they're going to be doing 8 hours of work or 6 hours of work, you know, how would we best use that time to supplement what we're doing? And going back to what Scott's saying, I think that your question, Scott, had been about whether or not we should be reviewing minor exempt activities under the bylaw, and doing site visits was kind of your questions, right?
I think we're spending, I think it's just looking at the totality of where the commission's spending time and how we're, what would be most efficient, because I do agree if we had like someone like what Beth was saying to work through asking questions, maybe we would find that some of these activities that we're going to go look at, we don't need to go look at. Some of the other ones, maybe we do. And then some of the other ones, maybe we do need specialized expertise where it would make sense to have a consultant. And so just getting a better sense of this past year in review, maybe looking at it through that lens, and it would help shed some light on, what a more efficient structure is looking forward. But
So what I'm going to do, the way that I have been tagging in the activity log for this data is looking at what were minor exempt activities under the Wetland Protection Act, but not minor under the bylaw. And then kind of looking at two questions. One was, did the review identify resource areas? And second, did the review result in any permit applications? Because, and I would say, I can't tell you because I haven't looked at the numbers, but does that sound like that would be useful data?
I think so.
yeah.
Because, if we went out and looked at, let's say we did of those 84 site visits, let's say 80 of them, we went out and they were nothing burgers. There were no resource areas and they didn't result in any applications. And we would probably all agree it was a colossal waste of our time and we shouldn't do it. If we
We'd all quit.
What?
We'd all quit.
Right. If we went out and we found then 80% of the time we found a resource area on the property that maybe the applicant wasn't aware of, but perhaps it didn't result in an application because they were outside the 100-foot buffer. Then the question is that still benefiting the community that we went out and educated them about where wetlands are on their property so they could plan for future projects, and then how many times did their project actually require a permit because of our review process? So that was kind of what I thought would be important ways to look at it.
And well, and just thinking of an agent, again, the Amherst situation was a little different, but that was exactly what, when I was an agent, that I would do. If somebody called on the phone and said, should I be applying or shouldn't I be applying? I would be the one that would just go to the site on my own and determine whether or not they really needed to file an RDA or an NOI or what they had to file. The only time the Concom members ever went was, we would do our site visits the day of meetings, and it was only to sites where there were actual applications. So the Concom members, those were the only sites that they saw. All these other smaller sites, if it had to do with a building permit, if it had to do with anything, was taken care of by the agent. But I was 20 hours. I mean, that's a position that Shutesbury just can't afford to do. But that's just that's kind of, you can take that position and shrink it in certain ways and maybe create something that we would want.
And I think, it'd be good, I think that what has come out in, is that, in the summertime, We were able to do some late afternoon site visits that Beth was able to participate in, which I
Right.
thought was great. We did some weekend ones where we just did a slew of them. And then, you know, Mayor, I would say during the week, there's been a fair number of those site visits where it was Mary, Robin, and I, or some subsection of us going out during the week. And, you know, it'd be good to hear from Mary and Robin about how you feel that that's working.
Just a reminder, it's 8 o'clock.
Yes. We should wrap up, but I just, you know, want to give you guys.
Well, I've learned a lot from going out on these, and I think, you know, a lot of the people that we've seen during the week that have questions about the process of doing things, I think has been beneficial.
I would agree.
And it's always fun to watch me fall into things, isn't it?
The best
guys-
part.
See, Beth
Yes.
and Scott, and for the members of the public, I did it again at the last site visit at 375 Lox Pond Road. I'm backing up to take a picture and I walked into a snow-covered fire pit. I'm gonna break a leg. I'm gonna change the error of my ways and stop doing this is what I'm gonna do, but
You need to be more careful. I don't know who's gonna do all this work if you get injured.
yeah, well, it was pretty hilarious. At least it was a soft landing this time. I didn't get, you know, it was just like rolling in the snow, but it was kind of funny. Okay. We will table this, I guess. What I would like to do is have you guys read through the feasibility study and the job description that was drafted.
Yep.
The one that that Janice edited, I think would be the one that's more appropriate. Maybe come armed at our February meeting to try to come up with some action plans. And I'm going to send out to everybody a draft of some proposed revisions for the regulations that I've been working on. And I'm going to get that out to everybody, and then we'll go from there, and you can take a look at the fee. We can then have a conversation about the fee structure.
Okay.
And perhaps, you know, there is a personnel board meeting in January. Does it make sense to go and have a preliminary conversation with the personnel board? Should I ask to put it on the agenda and go talk to them?
I think that might help only because it would give you a direction. So if they say, if you want this, here's what we would need to be able to review this.
Okay. All right, I will do that. Okay, so I'm just looking at our agenda. We skipped around. I see everybody's here. Maybe, would it be okay with Tom and Hannah if we took Bridget Likely first to talk before we get to you guys? Is that okay? Hi, Bridget. Bridget was at the Leverett Conservation Commission meeting.
I always get confused when I see you, Miriam, on those. I'm like, am I in the right town meeting?
All right, so I wanted just to update the commission. So as you know, there's going to be a special town meeting next Thursday. What time is it? At 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock?
6 is what I've seen.
6 o'clock in person at the school, not online. And, you know, I really hope folks will turn out. I hope we get a good turnout. These winter special town meetings don't get great turnout. And I just would really hope that, you know, we do get a good turnout. So what ended up happening after much discussion, many emails that Bridget was a part of, so, and our Donna McNichol and Rita and Matteo Pangallo from this Community Preservation Committee and God knows who else. There was a lot of back and forth. So the way things stand right now in the process is that Kestrel and the Concom reviewed that conservation restriction last summer. And it was submitted to the state in September. It needs to be reviewed by the state. It's not come back yet. They're very, very backlogged due to staffing issues. And so it's eventually they will either approve it or they'll come back with revisions. Because conservation restrictions have to be approved by the state. Once they're approved by the state, then they get recorded. They get all the parties sign it and it gets recorded and attached to the deed at the Franklin County Registry of Deeds. A concern was raised that perhaps the Community Preservation Act funds could not be released until the conservation restriction was approved. That was the worry. And it led to a lot of anxiety and the discussion we had in December about whether we needed to come up with some other funding mechanism in order to close, because the closing has to happen by January 27th in order to receive the Forest Legacy Grant program funds, the federal grant program funds. That's about $197,000 and change. So the final much ado but nothing was that we don't need to worry about that, and that the property can be acquired, and then in due course, when the conservation restriction is approved, then it can be recorded, and that is what that is. However, town council felt that the warrant article that was approved at town meeting last year was insufficient. She said, first, there needed to be a separate warrant article to approve the purchase, which was a little confusing to me because the warrant article said to allocate funds for the purchase, which implies that a purchase is going to happen, but she feels there needs to be a separate, distinct warrant article. And then she feels that there has to be a separate warrant article to award the conservation restriction to Kestrel, that the town can't do that without an annual town meeting vote. So there was a flurry of activity to schedule a special town meeting and get this on the warrant. And there's another item or two that are on the warrant that I won't get into. And in the meantime, the select board approved the contract with the state in order to receive the federal funds. So it's very complicated, but the select board had to sign a contract agreement with the state in order for the funds to get transferred to the town, the $197,000. And then at closing, those funds get released to Kestrel as part of the closing costs for the acquisition, part of the purchase price. I mean, not closing costs, purchase price. You guys following that? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So, you know, at this late date, I hope that special town meeting will not rethink this project for some reason. I can't imagine why anybody would, but you just never know what concerns might be.
What night is the special town meeting?
Thursday, January 19th.
Next Thursday. Okay.
Mhm.
So I would really hope
At the school, right?
at the school. I hope all the conservation commissioners can be there since it's our project. I think we should be there to vote.
I'll be there to vote.
So, is there anything you feel like I missed or that you want to add, Bridget?
No, I think that was a good overview. Kestrel will be sending out an email hopefully tomorrow to its membership of Shutesbury residents, encouraging everyone to go to the town meetings. Hopefully we get a turnout from Kestrel supporters, which will be great.
Nice.
And I'll check in with Lindsay again tomorrow, the grants administrator for the Forest Legacy funding. But when we talked last week, we were in a good place for that. So.
And just for the benefit of members of the public who are here, just to help you understand, this was a very unique opportunity because these federal funds are not ordinarily available, but there was some leftover grant money that we were able to access. And Kestrel was able to raise a significant amount of money in private donations in order to contribute and cover all of the closing costs very generously. So all the due diligence work, the closing costs, certificate of title, certificate of title insurance, all of that is being covered by Kestrel at no cost to the town. And I don't know if you have the number, Bridget, of like how much the private donation component is. You have a dollar amount for that?
I can pull it up really quick. Let me do
Well,
that.
it's a lot, but, and so we're, the funds that are being allocated by the CPC are coming from a portion of the CPC fund that's already pre-allocated for open space preservation. So a certain percentage of the money held by the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, can be only used by state law for community preservation, open space preservation. So the $45,000 that was allocated can only be used for that purpose in the future. So if it isn't used for this particular project, then it would just sit there and not be benefiting the town until another project was proposed. So it seemed like a really unique opportunity to leverage this amount of of town funding by accessing what Kestrel was offering us and the federal government was offering us.
Yes. So I did look at the budget, Miriam, and it's approximately $36,000 that Kestrel is putting towards this project. That's a mix of private foundation funds we received and a portion of our campaign funds.
So, and then $20,000 is being allocated from the Conservation Commission's Conservation Land Trust Fund. And again, that is a fund that can only be used for acquisitions. It can't be used for any other purpose. We can't use it for a conservation agent. We can't use it for training or consultation. We can only use it for land acquisitions. And so that money has been slowly accumulating over the years. And we haven't used that fund since 2000 or 1999 when Southbrook Conservation Area was purchased. So we don't use that fund often, and this was a great way to get quite a bit of land for really a very small portion of our total account balance. The one thing that Donna did say was that because of the issues with there was an error in the warrant article at the annual town meeting last year. And the error was that the actual budget was for $45,000 to go to the purchase and then $5,000 to go for the development of the parking area. And that $5,000 was coming from funds that were allocated for recreation, not for open space. And somehow that warrant article didn't reflect that. So Donna is saying that we can go ahead with the allocation of $45,000 with the warrant article that was approved. But at annual town meeting this coming year, we'll have to have we may need to have a new warrant article for the $5,000. It's also possible CPC won't require that. They're meeting next week and that's on the agenda to find out what do we do about the $5,000 that was in the CPC application, but wasn't really spelled out in the warrant article. That makes sense? Okay. All right, let's move on. Thank you, Bridget. Oh, and just so you know, Bridget, I put up that website on our page, and I'm actually wondering what the commission would think about perhaps my posting it on Nextdoor Shutesbury, so that people in town who are on that platform could go to it to get information. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I plan to include that link, Miriam, in our email tomorrow. And also the Gazette reached out to us about next week's town meetings. And I mentioned that link as well when I spoke with them. So.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Great. Thanks all.
Okay. So let's move on. Tom Colt and Hannah Kowalski. Hi, Hannah. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
So I talked with, was it John DeVore, right? That's who I spoke with today.
Yeah, you spoke with me earlier today. Yep.
Hi, John. So there's some questions that have come up about the plan for 86 Sand Hill Road. Do you want to, one of you want to explain to the commission what the concerns are?
Sure, absolutely. So we went on site with our driller, and we noticed the locations of the water well that the homeowner has. The homeowner had mentioned that it's a pretty good well. It's pumping roughly 25 gallons a minute of water, which is a decent amount of water. And our driller, in his years of experience, determined that most likely, obviously we can't predict what's underground, but most likely is that we will hit some amount of water during our drilling process. With that concern, there's only limited ways that we can, mitigate water, as water is, one of the most powerful things on earth. So the concern, I guess, would be what we can do to contain the water if we hit water, obviously keeping the sediment and the drilling cuttings out of the wetlands areas. And I think after the conversation I have with Miriam today, which I'll explain, I think we have a decent idea of how to do that. So the new drill rigs that we have are a little unconventional as far as what we all know as of a drill rig. The footprint of them are extremely small, and they have they have a system that basically anything that comes up out of the ground goes directly into a hose, which goes to what we call a container. A container being, honestly, it's just a high-tech roll-off dumpster. It's got baffles in it that the water can't slosh, it can't leak, it's all welded and sealed with steel. But basically anything that comes out of the ground goes through the hose into the container. Obviously during a normal drill site, especially this only being one bore, the container is more than enough to hold what we normally drill. The problem is if we hit water, that amount of water will fill up that container quite quickly. And then obviously what do we do from there? Obviously silt fencing and socks, while they filter the water, they don't actually stop water. So basically, after talking with the driller, what we came up with for a plan is to pump the water, obviously with the drill rig, into the container. And then there's an output on the container that we can use, and we would put what they call filter socks. The filter socks being, there's a good picture right there. That's the container. On the other side of that container, there's an outlet. We have filter socks. Basically what they are is they go right on the end of the hose and out of the output, and they're a high micron, almost like a sack, like an old bushel sack that filters all the sediment out of the water, and the water comes out clean. So typically what we would do in this situation is we would put the filter sock on the other side of the container, and we would pump the water out of the container and back up to the drill site. And then over time, hours or days, the earth would obviously absorb the clean water back into the earth. The problem is, like Miriam had brought up to us, is one, the ground in your area is frozen. And two, it makes a giant ice skating rink, for lack of a better term, of Mr. Colt's front yard, which obviously he's not going to want, and we certainly don't want that, and nobody wants that liability. So Miriam and I discussed it for a while, and we came up with the idea of pumping the clean water, because there's quite a bit of forest way in between where we'd be pumping it off of a hillside to the actual creek or river. We would pump it right off the hill as clean water, and it would go through the foliage and the leaves and everything, and it would saturate down into the earth before it would get necessarily to the river. And I think that's what we would like to propose or discuss tonight.
So that was one of the things we talked about. The other thing was that they have not put in the erosion controls yet. and the ground's frozen, and so there's a concern about how to trench for the silt fence.
Mhm.
Um,
Correct.
And, you know, if there's concerns about water or excess water, it seems like it's important to make sure the erosion controls are adequate.
Mhm.
I guess
Yeah.
if this approach was used, do you think erosion socks would be sufficient? As instead of the silt fence? Like staked erosion socks, if you can get staked.
No, we definitely want to do silt fencing. Um, just because of the wetlands in the area. You know, filter socks do work. It's just one of those, because no matter, like, if we had a way that we could direct it and then clean it up later, it'd be one thing, but there's wetlands on both sides of this property. It's just, in my opinion, it's too, well, not my opinion, but in the driller's opinion, it's too much of a risk to not have properly trenched in silt fencing.
And then
With
the
that
other,
being,
the other
go ahead.
thing that Tom Colt shared was that they're doing this project in 2 phases. So the first step is to do the drilling, and then the drill goes away, drill rig goes away, and then at some later point, then they will do the trenching to connect the well to the house. And the landowner would prefer to not have the silt fence across his driveway for the foreseeable future, for maybe months, until the trenches are done. So, you know, they were looking for an alternative, whether they could at some point remove the silt fence.
Actually, Miriam, if I
Yeah.
can comment on that.
Yeah.
This is Tom. Here, I'll turn on my video. I think that's a secondary concern.
Okay.
Where the silt fence is right now, it is sort of temporarily put up. It's not blocking the driveway, so it wouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
If it doesn't move, that wouldn't be an issue. But if I can ask a question, I did not get clear on what John and Miriam you were thinking of about pumping the excess water. Where would that water be deposited?
Well, I would have to go back and look at the site, and I suspect we may want to do another site visit. And I guess one of the things we have to figure out is, even if this can be approved under the existing order of conditions, or whether this is too much of a change. I think that's a question the commission needs to consider. So I'm not approving, I didn't approve anything, but you know, I was wondering, in theory, I guess in theory, could the water be pumped? I guess if you're looking at your house, then it to the left. Isn't it
Well,
slopes down?
actually, it could. There's 2 directions it could go, into one of the 2 wetlands. And I don't know what John had in mind, but what I had in mind was very close to the original plan. In the original plan, the filter stock, it's on the plan, sort of right in front of the house, and that area slopes down toward, not towards the stream, other wetland that's my house and the Sylvester's house. And any reason why that would be a
To the
problem?
right of your house, you mean?
To the west of my house, which is to the right if you're looking at it from the road.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you had the filter sock in the original location, or maybe a little bit closer to the road than that, and the water would just drain right down into that area. It's very it's a gentle but consistent slope, and if it's filtered, it shouldn't be any different than the water that drains from Sand Hill Road from the ditch into a turnout that goes right into that that wetland anyway.
I'm gonna try to pull up the site plan. So
Tom, if you don't mind me asking, isn't your septic down there?
It's it's in that general direction, but that wouldn't, yeah, yeah, the septic's on the other side of the wetland.
I'm trying to see which is the best site plan to illustrate this. I guess this is the best one, right? Can everybody see this?
Yes.
I'm gonna blow it up. So, my recollection is that there's a wetland over here, right?
It's just north of that septic system, yeah.
Well, there's one over here.
Right.
Okay, can everybody see my cursor?
Yes.
And then I believe there's another BVW over here, and then the river is, Dean Brook is down there. And it kind of, from where the trench is right here, it kind of slopes down. Everything slopes down this way. So that was my thought, was to get it away from your your septic system.
Mhm.
I'd have to look to see where the wetland, I don't know what the distance is to the wetland. Let me see if there's any
I believe on that side it was 197 feet.
to the BVW.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure. Okay, so this doesn't have. So this line right here is the 100-foot line for the stream riverfront area, but it doesn't show the BVW.
I believe it's in order of conditions. Let me pull it up.
Okay, so 133 feet, it looks like.
Yep, correct.
What I'm seeing in this map is that it's from the bore site to the BVW, the B series BVW, it's 133 feet. And it's forested, so the question would be,
I mean, I think the driller is going to be more comfortable with sending the water not directly at the septic system.
what
Okay,
do you
that's
guys,
fine with me.
let me ask the commission, because I think this is where we have to figure some things out.
Mhm.
So let me just address the commission and commissioners. Do we feel like we can even consider all of this under the existing order of conditions? That's the first question, I guess.
Well, one question I have, that just to clarify my picture of the whole thing, wherever we had originally said the erosion control was gonna go, is the actual outlet of where this water is gonna start being discharged actually outside of where I'm assuming the erosion control was originally gonna be pretty close to where the work site is. And now we're planning on discharging the water into the woods. Is it actually gonna be discharged outside of where the erosion control is gonna be?
Let me show you the site plan again, Beth. So you guys see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Should I blow it up a little bit? So this is the silt fence. This is the container, the spoils container, and there was going to be a silt fence around that. Is that right, John and Anna?
So I think that's being misinterpreted. So that is where the actual borehole is, and it's about typically it's about a 4-foot diameter from that borehole in a circle, and that's where we normally put our silt
No.
fence.
Right where this arrow is pointing is where the borehole was going to be. Right over here, this diamond shape, what was the spoils container.
Okay.
And then the silt fence erosion controls is this red line that was going to wrap around where the trench was going to go. And then it was going to connect up and kind of encompass the area for the borehole.
Right, but that's why it's the 2-part issue, because that won't, I mean, we can put that there, but in reality is that's irrelevant until after the problem with the water is dealt with.
Right.
The main issue is the actual borehole itself. The trenching, we can put up as much silt fence as human would like. That's not an issue.
It's almost like we really want to look at this because it's being phased. It's 2 different steps, and erosion controls, different erosion controls are needed for each phase.
Correct.
So let's just look at, so Beth, did that answer your question?
Well, not so much. I think one thing I would like is to see a site plan that is showing this first phase. Like where exactly is the water gonna get discharged? Where exactly is there gonna be erosion control for the first phase of work? Where is this tank gonna be placed that the water's gonna go in with the baffles? And, you know, where is the what I call a bladder that the water can go in and seep through? You know, where's that gonna get placed? Where's the water gonna start
So we
originating from?
wouldn't have a bladder. The container we can place anywhere that, you know, anybody wants. It's pretty much wherever a pickup truck can go, we can put the container. So like in this instance, if this was the site plan we went with, we could put the container in theory in that red diamond. And then, like I said, there's an output right on the container, and the filter sock would go directly on the output, and then it would go to a hose, and the hose would go wherever we deem you want it to go. There wouldn't be actual erosion controls like a silt fence or anything like that to be marked on a site plan, other than physically around the container and physically around the borehole. Like there's not like there's going to be a line of silt fencing across the property or anything like that. Like the only erosion controls that we would have using that system would be directly around the borehole and directly around the container.
Right. But you would have, but the layout would be different than it is on this site plan, because right now, the purpose of that erosion control line is partially to protect the trench work. If we're considering the trench work, then, you know, the line of the erosion control would be different.
In theory, yes.
So I agree with Beth, we need to have this in a site plan. We need a revision, but this is a procedural question for the commission. Is this, because I think we have to just decide this. Do they need to do an amended order, or can we do this under the existing order conditions? Like that's a decision we have to make. So now we're talking about a different site plan, change to the site plan. And I'm concerned that now we're looking at really, is this really amending the order of conditions? We're talking about doing this in phases.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see an amendment just so that we can get a new site plan and sort of a write-up about how they're gonna actually do it now in phases. And yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a little concerned about sort of the power of the water when it's coming out of the hose, and right at the end of that hose, are they gonna put down any little, like a little bit of riprap or some kind of little outflow thing for where the hose is jetting out water, you know, all those kinds of questions. I guess maybe if they had a write-up, that would help.
The output would be like a 3 to 4 inch hose hooked up to a portable pump. That would be like probably 15 to 30 gallons a minute.
John, what's the output? Is it just a 3 to 4 inch hose, or does
Mhm.
it spray, or?
No, it'd be in a hose, and then wherever we put the hose is where it would come out.
You can't spread it anyway?
We don't have the technology to do that now.
What about just putting a filter bag in front of it? That spreads it.
Well, there would be a filter sock on there'd be a filter sock on the output directly. I mean, in theory, you could put one on the end and it would spray it, so to speak. The only issue that I see with that is if we go down this hill and it, you know, if the pressure of the water or something like that blows that sock off, then, you know, we're trekking down towards the wetland to retrieve it. That would be my only concern with that.
So, for you guys to understand, what we're talking about, what does the rest of the commission think about? Is this well, if you're going to request an amendment to the order of conditions, the first step is for us to make a determination that the proposed work, and we don't have a final layout of the proposed work, but that the proposed work is minor in nature. If it's minor in nature, then we can go forward to the next step for amending the order of conditions. If it was major, then if it was a major change, then you have to submit a whole new notice of intent. I don't think this is major. I don't think it's necessary, but I do think we probably have to go through the amendment process.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, yes.
So we do need to have a revision. It's almost as if you are resubmitting, in the sense that what you're going to have to do is give us a whole new construction sequence and a new site plan with maybe 2 site plans, phase 1 and phase 2 of the erosion controls. And describe in your narrative, in the construction sequence narrative, what you're going to be doing for erosion controls, like describe it, and describe what you want to do with the water if there's unanticipated water. And then when we have that, you're going to have another public hearing. And that means you're going to have to put a legal ad in the newspaper, and you're going to have to send out abutter notifications again. And then we'll have a public hearing, and then we review it, and then we will amend the order and give you a new order of conditions.
Okay.
So our next meeting is February 9th. If you feel like you can get all this together so that we have time to review it, and you want us to schedule the public hearing for February 9th, we can do that. If you think that's enough time for you.
Hannah, do you think that's enough time, or do you think we need more? No, she messaged me. Yeah, that should be okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is is it you, John, or is it Hannah that I would be coordinating with?
I would speak directly with Hannah. She's
Okay.
more into the Massachusetts stuff directly than I am, as we
So
discussed.
Hannah, we have a document on our website with instructions for how to amend an order of conditions, how to request it. And I can go over that with you, but the most important thing is for us all to agree on the hearing. So we're going to agree on February 9th. We already have something scheduled for 8 o'clock. So what if we schedule it for 7 o'clock on February 9th? If that
Okay.
works.
If
And
that works.
okay, and so we need to also then make a vote to make a determination that this is a minor change that's being requested.
Did I make a motion?
Yep,
Okay.
gotta do it.
I
Sorry.
make a motion that Concom feels like the change to the order of conditions for 86 Sand Hill Road is minor. So we're recommending an amended order of conditions.
I'll second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington,
I,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Great, thank you. And I'll be in touch with Hannah and Tom about the next steps, and we'll get through it.
I have one more general question for the Conservation Committee.
Yeah.
If this project were to get past the frozen ground, I know we have in the order of conditions currently, and obviously in the new one, after everything is done, we have a ordinance for wood chips, a layer of wood chips. if this project was with the weather that was better, we could directly plant hay and grass. Would that, if that was the case, would that alleviate that wood chip requirement?
Well, we would never allow the use of hay. We would only, if we use erosion controls, we would only allow straw because hay can have seeds. But that it can be invasive. But I believe in the public hearing, in the discussion, because it's kind of a forested area and it was going to be maintained as a forested area, the landowner was okay with the idea of wood chips. And, you know, there are lots of different materials you can put down. We just want something so that when the erosion controls are removed and there's heavy rain, let's say, that the disturbed soils don't erode. So
Correct. I understand that.
is that you guys don't want to use wood chips?
No, I typically, I didn't know the homeowner wanted the wood chips directly. Normally our homeowners want, you know, it restored to grass or whatever's there. So if he wants the wood chips, that's fine.
Tom, you're here.
John hasn't seen the site, and there's one area that's very steep that wood chips is the right thing for that area.
Okay. Perfect.
And you know, in the front yard where there's currently grass, that's eventually going to get restored to grass. But that's not really relevant. I mean, it's not an erosion thing because it's flat there. The erosion we worry about that on the hill.
And then before we get off, Tom, are you open to drilling in the spring when the ground is more feasible to taking on water to absorb it quicker, or is that something you would be against?
I would prefer to move quicker than that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if we have the hearing on the 9th and, you know, assuming everything is all in order and we can approve it, then, you know, you'd be good to go.
Okay.
Commissioners, do you want to go out and do another site visit with all of this discussion? Should we schedule just to?
Yeah.
Because it's been a year. It's been a year since I've been there. So Tom, I'm gonna loop back with you and try to schedule a site visit, unless we want to do it right now. Do you guys want to?
Can we get a date or something on the books? Because I would like our driller to be there. I feel like if Mark is there, he can physically point out, you know, what his general plan would be. And he has a lot more knowledge about drilling and erosion controls than I do.
All right. Well, as long, yep, I mean, I'm fine with that. Do you know what his availability would be?
I could probably get him there pretty much during the week, but it would have to be after 5 o'clock.
You know, right now it's pretty dark at 5 o'clock. I don't know that we could.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. As late as you could see possible.
I don't know. Beth, you probably are driving home. What time? Or Scott? I haven't been outside in 2 months. What is it like at 4 o'clock right now?
4 is kind of, I mean, 4:30 is kind of dusk and getting pretty dark.
So 4 might be okay.
You thinking 3:30, 4 o'clock?
Yeah, I'd say 4, you have a little bit, you have some time.
Let's say if you can do 3:30, that would even be better. I can't, you know, I guess we need to know what days to see whether or not people, if you want to propose maybe 2 or 3 days, and then I can poll the commissioners and see if we can get everybody together.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably get Mark out there somewhere in the week of probably the 24th to the 31st, somewhere around in there. 24th to the 1st, we probably get him out there. I don't know how quickly you need it with the meeting on the 9th.
Well, it'd be good before the 9th. So
pretty much any time after the week or after the 24th, we could probably get him out there.
Okay. Beth and you guys, what is your availability? Anybody want to, any days that don't work for you guys?
Friday, the 27th doesn't work for me, but the 24th, 25th Not the 26th either, the 24th or the 25th.
I think I'm pretty open.
I can't do the 25th. 24th I could do. 24th would be better for me.
Okay.
Should we shoot for that?
Fine with me.
Sure.
Okay, so at 3:30. And we'll confirm it with your driller.
Yep, I'll get on that tomorrow.
Thank you. And then, you know, we'll need all the stuff that we're gonna need, but sorry.
Yeah, that's the process. It is what it is.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so the other issue tonight on the agenda, we're almost done, is blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for it. There was this guidance that was received from DEP in response to a dock application. So 56 North Laurel Drive, their order of conditions required them to submit a dock application for a Chapter 91 state license. And so we became aware of it because they noticed us. And then when I shared it all with you guys, Janice Stone responded saying, well, are you guys permitting these docks? And I was like, I don't know. We've never done it in the time that I've been on the commission. And then I reached out to Mark Stinson, who said, yes, the actual regulations say that docks and buoys and structures in lakes need to either have determinations of applicability or they need to have orders of condition. I did a little research this afternoon and learned that some other communities I located where there are great ponds with recreational access, and other conservation commissions have guidelines and policies around this, which we don't have. So I've noted I have
Around permitting, you mean?
yeah, wetland permitting for docks and structures and lakes. So it's not permitting 91, Chapter 91, and we're not permitting around safety or public safety. It's around protecting wetlands.
Isn't that the same thing that Chapter 91 is doing?
No. No, it's not. And the DP Waterways program that administers the Chapter 91 program emailed me, and it clarified that our jurisdiction is independent of theirs. That there are two separate processes, however, they're linked in that the Chapter 91 regulations, I think, if I understand this correctly, says that you have to have either a determination or an order of conditions. So the state regulations say that the Concom has to issue a permit. We aren't, and we're kind of doing it reciprocally, because when we're permitting other projects, if we notice if somebody doesn't have a Chapter 91 license, we're requiring them to get it, but we aren't issuing the 91 license.
Is a 91 license good for sort of the life of the dock? You just get one?
It's good for 30 years, I think.
Okay. Well, I mean, it makes sense that anything that's touching the ground, you know, if the dock is tied to the ground of the lake, or a buoy has some kind of a weight, you're touching land underwater, and that is that's one of our resource areas. So I suppose if somebody's like putting a new dock in, we have a right to get a determination or an NOI.
I guess you'd want to look at the stability of the bank and whether, you know, the dock, the impact the dock could have on the bank in that particular location.
Mhm. But it would just be the one time so that they could get the chapter 91 and then,
Right,
you know,
right. And then we don't renew it.
Yeah.
Now, there's another way to go about this. There's a local permitting option that DEP can grant to towns that have a local permitting program that is approved by DEP, where they don't have to get a chapter 91 license. It's issued by like a harbor master. But the Concom still has to do the permitting. And in those cases, sometimes they have an annual renewable permit. So every year somebody has to renew their dock license. The town of Southfield, or no, the town of Southwick, I think, has a recreational lake, and they have a program like that. And I found a link. I can send you guys, if you want, I can send you a link to that website. And I found some samples of other towns' policies that have recreational waterways.
So this is kind of like opening a can of worms. So if we do that, are we going to then go and require every other dock that's present to get a permit?
do most of the docks at Lake Wyola, do you think they have chapter 91 approvals or no?
No,
No.
no, most of them do not.
Okay.
And if you sell your property, the license doesn't go with the new landowner. So if if people who got licenses, if they've sold the property, anybody who's bought a new property, unless they got a new license, it doesn't. The state has a website where you can look up up to the last 3 years of, and you can email them to ask them if there's a license for a particular property, but it's not like they have a database that we can just search through, which is annoying. So, we could say going forward, this is what we're going to do for new licenses.
Yeah.
And then decide, is it going to be an RDA or an NOI? I mean, I think if it was permanent docks that are on stilts, like if you're at the ocean or something, I think maybe an NOI makes sense. I think probably an RDA would be sufficient, right?
I think these docks are all put in and removed.
Movable. What do you think, Beth? Or do you think it should be an NOI? So there can be a certificate of compliance.
I think I want to see, how they go in. I don't know that much about docks. Like if they're not going to have any impact on the bank, they're just sort of being placed in. I suppose it could be an RDA. It depends basically how much impact to bank and how much impact to land underwater. If there really doesn't seem to be any kind of an impact, then I suppose an RDA, although they're working right in both of those resource areas to put the dock in, and the dock's going to be touching both of those two resource areas.
Thing about a dock also is that it's put in and taken out every year. So it's
true. It's a temporary impact.
It's a temporary.
Even more reason to just be an RDA.
What?
I said even more reason to just be an RDA if it's just a temporary impact.
No, the other issue has to do with other things in the lake. So buoys and diving platforms. There are buoys, and there have been some issues with DEP because there have been people putting buoys up in unsafe ways at times. I think there was an issue a couple of years ago where someone was ordered to take buoys out because somebody filed a complaint with DEP. And I know that LWA and LWAC oversee some of this. So I think we need to give them some guidance about the buoys and diving platforms.
I think the only thing that LWAC looks at for buoys is just the buoys at the beaches. That they all have a buoy that they place
at the LWA boot.
At the LWA boot.
So
LWAC, I don't think LWAC gets involved in anything other than that.
So why is LWAC reviewing buoys that are owned for LWA beaches? I'm just kind of confused about that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to, I have to go back and pull what their responsibility is, but they've been the liaison to look at the buoys around the beaches.
I know that's the concern. There was a recent issue that you guys reviewed where the decision was made to move the buoys farther out into the lake because the wake boats were creating so many waves that it was unsafe on the diving platforms. Isn't that right?
It was unsafe on the beaches and yes. So they did look that up and the question was, should we have wake boats? But it does say if they're outside the 200 feet, that there shouldn't be that much impact on the waves coming in to the beaches.
I don't even know what a wake boat is. What is a wake
Yeah.
boat?
If I can describe it, I don't, it's a boat that has some kind of bladder that you can weight it and it creates bigger waves based on how you fill it and what you do with it. I don't have a big knowledge of it, but it creates these big wakes.
Do they go faster? No.
Well, supposedly they're supposed to not go over 30 miles an hour on the lake anyways, but they do go faster. They are going fast and they're creating a huge, I mean, the waves are big enough that they've knocked my grandchildren over if they were sitting on the beach. The wave comes in and you have little kids sitting right on the edge of the water. The wave will just come in and splash them and knock them right over.
Wow.
So the waves are pretty big when they've been
It's really a
created.
safety issue.
So, and the theory was that the boats were driving too close to the beaches, so they pushed them out another 100 feet, and that's where the buoy came in. There's a buoy at all of those beaches that just marks the 200 feet. So the boats have to stay on the other side of the buoy.
Okay. It's a Wild West, huh? How do you control that? You know, somebody, Mr. Abdow, I emailed him a few months ago about it, the buoys. He apparently sometimes puts up racing lane buoys for some sort of water skiing, I guess. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Or does he have wake boats?
So there was a complaint about buoys in the lake that were just, that somebody was just dropping buoys. The buoys at the beaches are approved, but it appears that he's not the only one that does it, but there are people
They're approved by LWAC.
they're approved by LWAC.
I guess what I would one of my concerns about buoys is if somebody abandons a buoy, and if we don't know it's there and somebody just puts one up or leaves it for the whole summer.
The buoy's up for the whole summer. It goes out and it comes in and there's people that are assigned.
I understand about the safety ones, Mary. I'm talking about if somebody decides to put up a racing lane.
Oh, yes.
And then
Yes.
abandons the buoys, it could become really kind of an issue in the lake, having abandoned buoys.
Well, the ruling was that they weren't supposed to be doing that.
The ruling from who?
I think it was DEP got involved. It said that they weren't supposed to be putting in buoys for racing and then taking them back out again.
Okay. Well, I think they were, because that was what Mr. Abdow said, is that he.
Yeah,
still
they were last year, but I thought this final decision was people weren't supposed to do that.
I don't know if he knows that. I don't know if anybody's communicated that to him. So what do we want to do about buoys? Do we want to require, an RDA for them? Do we want to create an informal non-RDA approval process?
So my negativity will show here. Nobody's gonna put that in for the buoys. Just like this, Abdo isn't the only person that does it. When you're not looking, they put them out, they take them back in. So they put them out for a weekend, they do their ski racing, they take them back in. So unless you're there policing it or have a complaint, nobody notices it.
Well, LWA is putting out buoys and, or LWAC is putting out buoys and LWA is putting out diving platforms. So those are two parties that we could at least want some sort of review process of when they're doing it and, making sure that these things are never abandoned, I guess. If we
Can, like I said, that there's a very strict process. And I only know this because my neighbor and I help put out the buoys in the dock here. That they go out and they come in and there's certain timeframes they go out and then they get taken back in.
But technically, they should have a Chapter 91 license for that. If you were to follow the letter of the law, that's what the regulations say. And technically, they're supposed to have a permit from us. So we don't really have a say. We don't really have a say about whether they get a 91 license or not. We could certainly advise the town to get a 91 license. Just in order to be good role models and, kind of model what we want residents to be doing. And, we could be asking, what do you want to do, guys?
Maybe like you're saying, you could start the conversation with that to the town, at least if the town's the one putting out diving platforms and buoys in certain spots. Maybe we start by kind of encouraging them to get the Chapter 91.
But that also means then they need to get an RDA from us, a DOA.
To get the 91, you have to have the RDA.
That's what it says. The
And it's not,
regulations.
Yeah.
it's not the town, it's the LWA beaches. So it's
I
their
thought
private
the buoys,
beaches.
I thought the buoys were from LWAC.
So LWAC has been approving the buoys, but the buoys are put out by the LWA.
Okay. So it's
They're the Lake Wyola Association private beaches that the
guess-
buoy is on. And LWAC kind of is supposed to be a liaison between them and the town and whomever else. So
I feel like there's an educational piece with LWAC that needs to happen. Because I don't think from Mark Rivers' response, the email he sent, it did not sound like he understood it was, they were understanding that for what Chapter 191 license require from us, from the Concom. So, and LWAC is not a substitute for the Concom. So I don't think the town I think LWAC should not be approving things that the public might misconstrue as a permit. So I don't know should we have a joint meeting with LWAC?
We ought to just start with a conversation with Mark about it. Because it's, again, they can stop doing it because it's not, I don't know why they're doing it. It's just a history thing. They're not really.
So are we all in agreement that for Chapter 91 licenses going forward, we're going to require RDAs?
Yeah, I like that approach. Just anything new, like if somebody's applying for Chapter 91, they should get an RDA.
Okay. So that makes sense. And I will revise the information that we have on our website to reflect that. On another topic related.
Can I just do one?
Yeah.
So George Abdow is the president of the LWA. So if you need to address them doing something, of course, it's not new what they do. He's the one that would need to take it back to the Lake Wyola Association, because I don't know how the docking fits for a private beach. They fall under the same regulation. It's anything. Then so the LWA would be who would actually have to.
And it also, you could say the state beach is in the same boat because they put up buoys.
Yeah, they put up buoys to mark the swim lanes.
Okay.
But maybe they already have a chapter 91 license. The state beach does.
They might.
Or maybe they're even exempt because they're
That's
state.
what I was gonna say. My guess is that somehow they
They might be
gonna be
exempt.
exempt, but
I mean, they're not exempt from other things because it's, well, for us, they're not exempt from the Wetland Protection Act. DCR is not exempt.
No, but I don't know about chapter 91. Maybe they are. But don't know.
So, okay. On a related topic that, the lake lowering order of conditions is expiring this year. And it was a 5-year permit that was issued in 2018. For the first time, this town never had a permit. And so the LWAC applied for the annual winter lowering of the lake. And because of the impact, there was a requirement for a wildlife habitat evaluation, and that was in the order of conditions. So Emily Stockman was hired and did this very comprehensive wildlife habitat evaluation, which is a great read. I'd really want to encourage everybody to read it because I learned a lot about wildlife habitat in the lake. It's from 2019, so it's a little dated. For example, it's now on the natural heritage priority map, and it wasn't in 2019, but she had a number of recommendations for the order of conditions that are not in the order of conditions currently. And so she was recommending changes. So with this expiration of the 5-year permit, they're requesting an extension, another 5-year extension. I asked Mark Stinson about it, and he said that if we feel that the original order of conditions is no longer adequately protecting the interests of the act, we can deny the extension request and then require, what we could do is require a new notice of intent. Or alternatively, we can't make somebody do it, but we could ask for them to amend the order of conditions before it expires so that we can revise it and then extend it before it expires. When
you have a copy of the order.
Yeah, when you amend, yeah, I think I emailed it to everybody, but I can, so when you amend an order of conditions, the expiration date does not change. So if we, let's say between now and June, we amended the order of conditions, it would still expire in this fall. But we could then issue an extension. I think that would work without requiring a whole new notice of intent. But that would be only make sense if we feel that we want to revise that order of conditions to perhaps incorporate some of Emily Stockman's recommendations. And, you know, some of them have to do with the date and the, of when the lowering begins and ends. And she was also recommending some data collection. I was looking at the memorandum of understanding. And one of the things that they're required to do is to keep a log of the lake levels and what they do over time. And they're also supposed to be collecting a water analysis data, both at the time when they begin lowering it and when they raise it. There's some things they're supposed to be measuring. So we could ask for that data since it should be available and it hasn't been given to us. Should we do that?
Yeah.
So did you, just another question, did you send Emily's recommendations out to us too?
It's in the wildlife habitat evaluation, that document, the 2019 wildlife habitat.
And where do you find that? Where did you find that?
Her recommendations?
The wildlife, yeah, the wildlife
I
report.
emailed it to you guys ages ago, but I can send it again.
Okay. I must have missed that one too.
I can also send the order of conditions.
I mean, it would be nice to review all of that to see.
Yeah, you should. I don't have a digital copy of the original notice of intent. So maybe if Carrie, if you could find that file from 2018 and maybe scan it for us,
Yeah, I can do that.
that'd be great. Because I would like to see what was originally the application looked like. So what's basically has happened is that this wildlife habitat evaluation was done, but then it was never reviewed. As far as I can tell, it just was submitted and then no decisions were made because the permit had already been issued. So this is kind of our opportunity, if we're going to use that habitat evaluation, to really look at those recommendations. And maybe one of the things we could ask is whether LWAC could bring Emily back so we could talk to her about our recommendations. We can't hire her because she was working for the applicant. But we, you know, since it's her report, perhaps they could arrange that. Would you like me to ask them?
Because I'd like to know if there's any value to redoing it. This is only
Yeah.
not that many years. It's not that many years now, so.
Yeah, I
redo
think before I make a recommendation, I haven't had a chance to look through any of that stuff,
Okay.
so. I
All
think
right.
I'd like to.
So why don't I put this on the agenda with LWAC for February and invite LWAC? And I will send you guys what documents I have, and then when Carrie can dig it up, we'll get you the original notice of intent.
Okay.
And then maybe we can make a decision in February, because I really feel like we need to let them know soon so they can plan what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think their meeting is on the 21st.
Of February.
January and February, LWAC. So it's usually it's the third Saturday, so it would
Yeah.
be the 18th in February.
Well, there's, you know, I think maybe to understand the recommendations at some point, you know, we might want to have a conversation with Emily, whether it's during a public hearing to amend the order of conditions, or perhaps preliminary before that. I mean, I think, you know, having her expound on it might be useful.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so I will send you it. You can look at it and then we'll go from there.
Great.
Great. Okay, I think that we're done for tonight. I can't think
Yay.
nothing else. 2-hour meeting. All right. So
Good job.
go vote next week.
Great. See you at town meeting.
Somebody want to make
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, second.
Second.
David.
Aye.
Aye. Harrington.
I.
Right.
Wilson.
Hi.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night.